left me feeling I should invite Grady and his family up for a visit soon. It had been too long since I'd seen them, especially young Frank, named after my husband, and more like a grandson to me, given that his namesake and I had raised his father through a great measure of Grady's youth. And Grady so enjoyed blaming some of the business scrapes he'd gotten himself into over the years, pursuing this scheme or that one, on having a fertile imagination to match mine. Thinking of Grady and his family also made me realize it had been too long since I'd spoken with George Sutherland, the Scotland Yard inspector, who was the only man I'd ever actually dated since Frank's death, though I'm not sure our get-togethers were dates so much as two friends enjoying some mutual interests and each other's company. In other words, dates. Since Jean had no family, the Friends of the Library had taken on the task of arranging her service and funeral arrangements, and passed on a wake or memorial in favor of a reception to follow her burial in Cabot Cove's local cemetery, which was part of the National Historic Register. As chair of the Friends, I had the official greeting responsibilities, which I was dutifully performing outside the church when I spotted Mimi Van Dorn approaching. "Wonderful service, Jessica," she said, taking my hand affectionately. "I'm sure it would have made Jean proud." "Thanks, Mimi. I sure do miss her." Mimi looked around the front of our old church, shaking the platinum blonde hair from her face. Once her natural color, it now came courtesy of a bottle. Mimi was several years older than I, but you would know that from her appearance. She joined the Friends of the Library as soon as she moved to Cabot Cove, nearly a decade ago, and we quickly bonded over our mutual love of books. Not just reading, but the need to support the printed page, and especially libraries. I recall a particularly contentious town council meeting in which we needed to beat back a proposal to relocate our beloved library to make room for yet another high-end housing development. Mimi had launched into an impassioned speech that left those council members flirting with voting for the proposal, abruptly changing their minds. "I leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen," Mimi had concluded, turning to face the standing-room-only crowd. "This isn't just a choice between books and buildings, wood and words. It's also a choice between dreams and development." Mimi won me there, and we'd been close ever since. She was one of my closest friends in town, having taught me how to play bridge, canasta, and pinochle, though gin-rummy remained my favorite. She had come from old money and had settled in Cabot Cove long before it became fashionable to do so. We seldom, if ever, talked about our personal lives, but rather our favorite books over the years. We rarely agreed, which seemed to draw us even closer. I've bonded with people over many things, but never over anything as effectively as books. "Well, I intend to make a sizable donation to the library in Jean's name," Mimi said. "Perhaps to name a new collection." What was her favorite genre? "Anything but mystery," I told her. "I'm being serious here, Jessica." "So am I." She was a fan of classical fiction and looked forward to the day, she used to say, when I finally wrote a real book. "You're joking." "Maybe, but only in part. She used to read my books only to offer me critiques of what she deemed the more relevant parts. All of 3 or 4 pages normally. She did that for all 47 of my books, and I'll miss her doing it when number 48 comes out." "A clever way of letting you know she'd read them." Mimi nodded, dabbing her eyes with a folded-over handkerchief, more to keep her makeup in place than out of grief. Mimi hadn't seemed to have aged in the years I'd known her. If anything, she looked younger. I knew how vain she was about her appearance, just as I knew how averse she was to the surgical methods to which many women resorted. She'd become a health fiend in recent years, and an obsessive follower of new diets meant to assure eternal youth. We'd first met when she caught me jogging along the sea, and then again when I was riding my bicycle through town. She'd thought I'd eschewed driving to get more exercise until I confessed it was because I never learned how to